Hong Kong's latest anti-pandemic measures are likely to hit the city's poorest the hardest. Outside of the glistening skyscrapers, this is how many live. Hong Kong's cage homes, as they're known, are the size of a bed. Bathrooms are shared and there's no kitchen in sight.
Of course, the shutdown of eateries will affect me. For a regular family, they can still buy ingredients and cook meals, but we cannot cook here.
The pandemic and months of anti-China protests have taken an economic toll. GDP shrank 9% in the second quarter compared to the same period last year, the fourth consecutive quarter of contraction. And analysts think it's still got further to fall. Business is suffering too.
In the second quarter, the restaurants, hotels are still open. In the third quarter, then we have a third wave of pandemic, and then you have to shut the restaurants, and then you have close all the beaches and all the playgrounds, etc. So I will see a much worse figure for the third quarter.
Monthly retail figures out on Thursday are expected to only add to the grim outlook. In May, they were down almost 33% on the year. Bars and restaurants like these are now in a fight for survival. According to restaurant reviewing app OpenRice, more than 250 eateries closed down last month alone. And now, after months of unrest and a bruising trade war, analysts say the pandemic could be the final nail in the coffin for many local businesses. The government says the latest restrictions will be in place for at least a week, but authorities are still struggling to find the source of a lot of the local infections, leading to fears the city is on the brink of a much larger outbreak. For Mr. Chu, it's just one day at a time. He says there's nothing he can do but try to relax and take things as they come. Michelle Hennessy, TRT World, Hong Kong.
Well, for more on this, let's go to Francis Lun in Hong Kong. He's the CEO and Investment Services at market research firm Geo Securities. Welcome to Money Talks, Francis. Now, Hong Kong appears to be on track to match or top its longest recession on record, which began before this pandemic hit the city. What problems did the economy face before coronavirus?
I think before the coronavirus, it was the civil unrest. There was endless demonstrations and then riots every night last year in the October and November. But when the pandemic hit, then the riots and the demonstrations stopped. But then, of course, this COVID-19 really damaged the economy. All the restaurants have to be closed now, and we are closed to international travelers. There are no tourists in Hong Kong, and previously we have 50,000 tourists arrival every day. Now we are down to zero. So as you can see, the retail, the food and beverage, the catering, and the hotel industry suffers. And of course, last quarter, the second quarter, economy shrank by 9%. But actually, 9% is already a respectable figure. People were expecting much worse, like something like in excess of 10 or 15%. But wait until third quarter, I think the economy will shrink more than 10%.
Incredible. Now, the government in April announced an $18 billion stimulus package to Hong Kong citizens, including a cash handout of around $1,300. What more do you think the government needs to do now that the coronavirus pandemic is getting worse in the city?
I think the government needs to bail out the food and services and then the hotel industry, because there are 16 restaurants in Hong Kong, and all of them are not allowed to operate. And you have something like 100,000 people working in the food industry, in the eatery industry, and the government have to help them. I think the government already pays something like 6 months of their salaries, but then the restaurant have no income. How can they pay the rent? I think the government need to help the restaurant owners to pay the rent as well. So, which means the government we have to take pay much more to stop the economy from declining much further.
Okay, Francis Lun from Geo Securities in Hong Kong, thank you again for joining us on the program.